Anthony had no idea that a routine weekend visit to his family's property in rural Virginia would become the most unsettling experience of his life. What was supposed to be a quiet break from work turned into a chain of encounters that would follow him for years, leaving not only him but his entire family shaken to the core. The property had always felt peaceful to Anthony. Nestled in the woods, it was a place where his family spent weekends maintaining the land, relaxing, and enjoying the isolation. That sense of calm shattered almost immediately after his arrival. Not long into the visit, word reached the family that a dangerous fugitive had escaped custody somewhere nearby. Local authorities were searching the area, and residents were warned to stay alert. While the news was alarming, Anthony assumed it was simply one more risk that came with living near dense woodland. He had no idea that the warning would soon pale in comparison to what he was about to witness. Later that night, while inside the house, Anthony felt something that made his blood run cold. The floor beneath him began to vibrate, violently enough that it felt as though something extremely heavy was running just outside the walls. This wasn't the subtle sound of an animal brushing past the house. The vibrations were deep, powerful, and intentional, as if whatever was outside was circling the structure. Every instinct in Anthony's body told him that this wasn't normal wildlife behavior. Trying to make sense of what was happening, Anthony moved cautiously toward the porch. He flipped on the exterior light, expecting to see maybe a large animal or, at worst, a man fitting the description of the escaped fugitive. Instead, the light revealed a massive figure standing on the deck. For a brief, terrifying moment, Anthony thought the figure was a man wearing Carhartt coveralls. Its size alone was shocking, far larger than any person he had ever seen. Before he could process what he was looking at, the figure leapt off the deck with incredible speed and power, disappearing into the darkness. Convinced that an armed fugitive might be on the property, Anthony did what he felt he had to do. He retrieved a firearm and began scanning the surrounding woods. His heart was pounding, his senses on high alert, every shadow seeming to move. That's when he noticed something that made him freeze completely. About 20 feet up in a nearby tree, perched effortlessly on a thick branch, was the same figure. This time, there was no mistaking what he was seeing. The creature was covered in long black hair that flowed down its body. Its frame was humanoid, but its proportions were wrong, too tall, too broad, too powerful. Scars were visible across its body, as though it had survived countless violent encounters. And most disturbing of all, Anthony realized that the coveralls he thought he'd seen earlier were no clothing at all. There was nothing human about this being. The creature stared back at him, silent and unmoving, as if studying him just as intently. Anthony felt an overwhelming sense of dread, the kind that locks your muscles and steals your breath. Every rational explanation collapsed in that moment. This was not a man. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't anything Anthony could identify. And it was watching him from the trees. Eventually, the figure vanished as silently as it had appeared, leaving Anthony alone with his thoughts and a terror he couldn't explain. But the experience didn't end there. In the days and weeks that followed, strange events continued to plague the property. Anthony began noticing barefoot footprints appearing in the dirt around the land. They were large, human-shaped, and impossible to explain given the remote location. He and his family also started seeing hooded figures moving at the edge of the woods. These figures appeared to be wearing robes, their faces hidden in shadow. They never approached directly, but their presence was unmistakable. Each sighting added another layer of fear and confusion. It felt as though the property was being watched, monitored by something unseen and unknown. One night, Anthony witnessed something that confirmed his fear that whatever lived on the land was still there. While walking near a marshy area filled with tall reeds, he heard a loud, heavy disturbance. The reeds began to part and sway as if something massive was pushing through them. He couldn't see the creature itself, but the sheer size and force required to move through the thick vegetation was terrifying. It was clear that whatever it was enormous. The psychological toll of these encounters was immense. Anthony found it impossible to relax or feel safe, even in familiar surroundings. The constant sense of being watched followed him everywhere. Eventually, the fear became so overwhelming that he refused to sleep inside the house. Instead, he spent his nights in his work truck, parked nearby with the lights on, hoping the barrier of steel and glass would offer some small sense of protection. Years have passed since those events, but the memories remain vivid. Anthony still struggles to explain what he saw and experienced on that property. What he knows for certain is that the fear was real, the encounters were real, and whatever he witnessed left a permanent mark on his life. Whether the creature was something ancient, unknown, or something science has yet to acknowledge, Anthony is convinced of one thing. There are things out there, hidden in the woods, that most people will never see, and some of them may be watching us far more closely than we realize.